On August 30th, 1997, Princess Diana walked through the rear doors of the Ritz Paris, and she would never walk out of Paris alive. What happened between that entrance and 4 o'clock the following morning has been investigated by two countries, debated for nearly 3 decades, and never fully escaped the building where it began. To understand that night, you have to understand the building first, because the Ritz isn't just a backdrop to this story. The building itself is the reason the night unfolded exactly the way it did. June 1st, 1898, was the day a Swiss peasant's son named César Ritz opened a hotel at 15 Place Vendôme, inside 2 18th-century townhouses on one of the most prestigious squares in the world. César Ritz had been the youngest of 13 children, and at age 15, an employer told him directly that he would never make anything of himself in the hotel business. Every floor had electricity. Every room had its own bathroom and telephone, and César's wife, Marie-Louise, insisted on peach-colored towels because she believed they flattered guests' complexions. Marcel Proust attended opening night at 27 years old. Ernest Hemingway showed up on the day Paris was liberated in 1944 and ran up a tab for 51 dry martinis. Coco Chanel moved into Suite 302 in 1937 and stayed for 34 years until her death in 1971. By the late 1970s, the Ritz was losing money for the first time in its history. That changed in 1979 when Mohammed Al Fayed purchased it for somewhere between $20 and $30 million, a figure that remains disputed. What followed is not disputed. Al Fayed poured approximately $250 million into a first major renovation, adding a swimming pool, health clubs, and a cooking school, turning a fading landmark back into the address every wealthy traveler on Earth wanted to reach. Al Fayed also had a son. Born in Alexandria, Egypt, on April 15, 1955, Dodi Fayed served as executive producer of Chariots of Fire, which won Best Picture at the 1982 Academy Awards. Many who worked on the film considered his actual creative involvement limited. Hollywood knew him mainly for lavish parties and a lifestyle bankrolled in part by a reported monthly allowance of £400,000 from his father. In the months before the summer of 1997, Dodi was involved with American model Kelly Fisher, who later claimed he had proposed to her in February with a ring valued at $233,000 and had set a wedding date for August 9th. Fisher filed a breach of contract suit on August 14, 1997, seeking $440,000, represented by Gloria Allred. She withdrew the lawsuit on September 1, 1997, the day after Dodi died. The relationship between Dodi and Diana began in mid-July 1997 during a family holiday at Mohammed Al Fayed's estate in Saint-Tropez, and became public on August 10th when the Sunday Mirror published paparazzi photographs reportedly sold for around $6 million. By the time they arrived in Paris on August 30th, 1997, they had been together for approximately 6 weeks, with roughly 23 days spent in each other's company. Diana's position that summer was more exposed than at any point in her public life. The divorce from Prince Charles had been finalized the previous August, and with it went her royal security protection. Her previous partner, British-Pakistani heart surgeon Hasnat Khan, was described by close friends as the love of her life, and that relationship had ended in July 1997, just weeks before Saint-Tropez. Khan himself testified at the 2008 inquest that his primary concern about their future together had been that his life would become hell because of who she was. Their private jet landed at Le Bourget Airport at approximately 3:20 in the afternoon on August 30th, with around a dozen paparazzi already waiting on the tarmac. After a stop at the Villa Windsor that lasted approximately 28 minutes, the couple arrived at the Ritz through the rear Rue Cambon entrance at around 4:35 and checked into the Imperial Suite. Late in the afternoon, Dodi left briefly for Repossi Jewelers on Place Vendôme, returning 9 minutes later with a brochure, and 2 rings were subsequently delivered to the suite. One came from the Dis-moi Oui collection, which translates to "Tell me yes," listed on the receipt as an engagement ring and priced at £11,600. That ring was found at Dodi's apartment after the crash, and no evidence ever emerged that Diana saw it. The evening collapsed quickly. Paparazzi pursuit forced them to abandon a restaurant reservation, and when they returned to the Ritz at around 9:50 and entered L'Espadon, the hotel's fine dining restaurant, the attention from other guests became unbearable. Bodyguard Kes Wingfield testified that before the food even arrived, Diana was weeping silently and told Dodi she wanted to leave. Dinner was served upstairs in the Imperial Suite instead. At 10 o'clock, a man named Henri Paul was called back to the hotel. Paul had gone off duty at 7 o'clock, and his return changed everything. His title was Deputy Head of Security, a position he had held at the Ritz since 1986, after leaving the French Air Force as a captain. 3 days before the crash, he had passed his annual pilot's physical exam. He had completed 2 specialist Mercedes-Benz driving courses in Stuttgart. None of that made him an accredited chauffeur, because driving guests was simply not his job. Just before midnight, Dodi devised his plan. His regular driver would take an earlier vehicle from the front entrance to draw off the photographers, and Diana and Dodi slipped out from the rear in a different Mercedes-Benz with Henri Paul behind the wheel. Bodyguard Trevor Reese Jones refused to allow the departure without protection, and he took the front passenger seat himself. At 12:17 in the morning on August 31st, the black 1994 Mercedes-Benz S280 pulled away from the Rue Cambon exit, and none of the 4 people inside were wearing seat belts. French investigators later estimated the Mercedes entered the Pont de l'Alma tunnel at between 118 and 155 kilometers per hour, in a zone with a 50 kilometers per hour limit. Henri Paul likely braked suddenly to avoid a white Fiat Uno in the right lane. The Mercedes clipped that car, lost control, struck the 13th concrete pillar, and then spun into the tunnel wall. Dodi and Henri Paul died instantly. Trevor Reese Jones survived, but every bone in his face was broken. Surgeons later reconstructed his face using approximately 150 titanium pieces, working from old family photographs. Because of the severity of his head injury, he has never recovered any memory of the crash or of the 4 hours before it. Diana was still alive when the first responders arrived. Dr. Frederick Mailles, an off-duty emergency physician driving through the tunnel from the opposite direction, stopped and began resuscitation without recognizing who she was. The 6-kilometer journey to Pitié-Salpêtrière Hospital took roughly 40 minutes, in keeping with French SMU protocol. Surgeons found a rupture of the left pulmonary vein, described by pathologist Richard Shepard as a tiny tear causing catastrophic hemorrhage, and performed direct cardiac massage for nearly 2 hours. At 4 o'clock in the morning, Princess Diana was declared dead at 36 years old. The French investigation, completed in September 1999, placed responsibility entirely on Henri Paul, whose blood alcohol level came back at 1.8 grams per liter, 3.5 times the French legal limit, with multiple medications in his system carrying warnings against combining them with alcohol. All charges against the photographers were dismissed. The British inquest reached a different conclusion when a 9-2 majority in April 2008 returned a verdict of unlawful killing caused by the grossly negligent driving of both the pursuing vehicles and the Mercedes, finding the paparazzi pursuit a contributing cause alongside Henry Paul's condition. Mohammed Al-Fayed spent years insisting the crash was a deliberate killing ordered by Prince Philip, because the royal family could not accept Diana marrying a Muslim. Operation Paget, led by Metropolitan Police Commissioner Sir John Stevens, evaluated more than 175 specific conspiracy claims, conducted over 300 interviews, and published an 832-page report in December 2006. Every single claim was rejected. The conclusion was unambiguous. This was a tragic accident. Al-Fayed died on August 30, 2023, exactly 26 years after the night he sent his son and Princess Diana out through that rear door. He was 94 years old. The Ritz Paris remains in the Al-Fayed family estate today, and the imperial suite, where Diana and Dodi ate their last meal together, is still available for guests to book. A few hundred meters away, at the Pont de l'Alma tunnel entrance, a gilded flame stands as her memorial, a replica of the Statue of Liberty's torch placed there in 1989 as a symbol of Franco-American friendship, 8 years before Diana ever arrived in Paris that August. Mourners transformed it in the days after the crash, and in 2019, Paris made that designation permanent, officially renaming the site Place Diana. The hotel carries no public memorial to her. The building simply continues, the same address on the same square, unable to be separated from the night it witnessed.